Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales, but we're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. I used to believe that love was unbreakable, that trust was the foundation of every marriage, and respect was the unspoken promise between two people who vowed to stand by each other. I was wrong. My name is Damian Cole, and this is the story of how betrayal forged me into a man I never thought I'd become. 5 days ago, I stood in my kitchen, my daughter Sophia's iPad in hand, staring at a group chat I was never meant to see. My wife, Juliet, her sister Tessa, and their mother Cassandra had named it family only, but the messages inside had nothing to do with love or unity. "He's just a pushover," Juliet had written. "He won't do anything," Tessa added, followed by a string of laughing emojis. "Drain his savings while you can," Cassandra advised. "He'll never stand up for himself." At first, I didn't want to believe it. My own wife, my own family. But the messages stretched back years, mocking me, belittling my sacrifices, ridiculing my trust and love as nothing more than blind stupidity. They laughed about how I turned down a promotion to spend more time with Sophia. They joked about how I never questioned Juliet's so-called home renovations, which, as I soon realized, were actually luxury spa weekends, shopping sprees, and far, far worse. I should have just left then and there. I should have called my lawyer, packed my things, and walked away. But something inside me snapped. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to make them pay. Because for years, I had been the nice guy, the quiet, trusting, reliable man, the one they thought they could manipulate without consequences. They had never once stopped to wonder what would happen if that quiet, obliging man discovered real rage. That night, as Juliet slept beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my heart hammering in my chest. I wasn't going to be their fool anymore. I was going to show them exactly what it meant to betray a man who had given them everything. And when I was done, they would regret every single laugh, every single stolen dollar, and every single lie. 2 days later, Sophia looked up at me while eating her cereal, her innocent voice cutting through my thoughts. "Daddy, why does Mommy's friend come over when you're not home?" My entire body stiffened. "A friend? What friend, sweetheart?" I asked, my voice careful. She tilted her head. "The tall man. He has a ring just like yours and Mommy's. He comes when you're at work. He always brings her coffee, and they talk in her room. Sometimes they laugh. I heard Mommy call him Theo, or something like that. Theo, a single name. And with it, the last illusion I had about my marriage shattered. Theo Ross, my best friend. We had grown up together. He had introduced me to Juliet. He had been there through every milestone, every celebration, every hardship. I remembered the way Juliet used to look at him, the subtle shift in her body language, the way she always seemed more alive when he was around. Before, I had thought nothing of it. Now it all made sense. She hadn't just been mocking me behind my back. She had been sleeping with my best friend. A cold, dark rage curled inside me. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to watch. And when the time was right, I was going to burn everything to the ground. That same day, while Juliet was out, I placed a hidden motion-activated camera in the living room, its lens discreetly tucked behind a decorative vase. Juliet had spent years underestimating me. She thought I was too blind, too weak, too trusting. She never imagined that I would fight back. The next afternoon, my phone buzzed with an alert. Motion detected. I tapped the screen, and there it was. Theo's silver truck pulling up. Him walking through my front door like he belonged there. And then, Juliet, laughing, kissing him, pulling him toward our bedroom. I watched the footage in cold, detached silence. For 2 hours, they stayed in the room where we had once made love, where we had once dreamed of future together. Then, Theo emerged, straightening his shirt, running a hand through his hair. He didn't look guilty. He looked victorious, like he had stolen something that was mine. That was the moment I decided. I wasn't just going to expose them. I was going to destroy them. And when I was done, they wouldn't just lose me. They would lose everything. That night, I overheard Juliet talking to her mother on the phone. "He's never going to confront me," she laughed. "We'll finalize everything next week once we get his bonus. Then I'll serve him the papers and take the house." "What's he going to do? Cry?" I clenched my fists so tightly my nails bit into my palms. They thought they had won. They thought I was too weak, too pathetic, too much of a pushover to fight back. They had no idea what was coming. The perfect opportunity came when Cassandra invited me to a family dinner. Every month, she hosted one at her massive, showy house, a place that screamed wealth, but was rotting with secrets underneath. Juliet, Tessa, and Cassandra would all be there. Theo would be too, and that was where I would strike. I arranged for Sophia to stay with a friend. I gathered every piece of evidence, the messages, the photos, the financial records. And then I hired a courier. I had envelopes prepared, each one labeled with a name. Inside, every ugly, undeniable truth. As I arrived at Cassandra's grand house, I was greeted with false smiles. Juliet kissed my cheek like she wasn't about to rip my life apart in a few days. Theo smirked at me from across the room, relaxed, confident. They had no idea that they were standing on the edge of their own downfall. As we sat at the dinner table, Cassandra raised a glass. "To family," she said. I let a slow smile curve my lips. Yes, to family. And then I set the envelopes on the table. Before dessert, I said, "I have something to share." One by one, they opened them. One by one, their faces drained of color. And then, hell broke loose. Silence. A rare, foreign thing at Cassandra's lavish dinner table, where the air was usually thick with condescension, gossip, and thinly veiled arrogance. But now, the silence was suffocating. The truth had been unleashed, and they were drowning in it. Juliet's face was ghostly pale, her breath coming in shallow gasps as her hands trembled over the pages of evidence. Beside her, Tessa had gone rigid, scanning the documents as if sheer willpower could alter the words printed on them. Cassandra was the first to recover. Her lips curled, her eyes narrowing with practiced authority, as though she were a queen scolding a disobedient subject. "Damien," she began, her voice edged with forced calm. "This is incredibly inappropriate. Whatever misunderstanding, save it." My voice sliced through the room like a blade. "We both know this isn't a misunderstanding." Juliet let out a shaky breath, finally speaking. "Damien, Shut up." She flinched. I had never spoken to her like that before. I had never raised my voice, never shown my anger. And that was exactly why she had never feared me. Until now. Cassandra inhaled sharply. "You don't talk to my daughter that way." I turned to her, my lips twisting into a cold smile. "You mean your daughter who's been robbing me blind? Your daughter who's been laughing behind my back for years? Your daughter who's been screwing my best friend?" Theo, who had remained eerily silent up until now, finally spoke. "Damien, man, just listen." I turned to him so fast that he physically flinched. "You," I said, my voice low, dangerous. "Have exactly 5 seconds to explain to me why you're still breathing right now." The blood drained from his face. Juliet sprang up from her chair, stepping between us like she could somehow shield him from me. "Damien, please, we can talk about this." I let out a dark, humorless laugh. "Talk." I shook my head. "We passed the point of talking the moment you decided to spit on our vows." Her lips parted, her throat bobbing with a swallow. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. And that's when it hit me. It wasn't just that she had betrayed me. It was that she had never once believed I had the strength to fight back. She had always thought I would accept it, that I would roll over and let her take everything from me. She had never expected me to be capable of this level of vengeance. She had underestimated me. And now, she was terrified. Good. Theo's breathing was uneven, his fingers gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping him standing. "Damien, look." I didn't let him finish. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a stack of documents, bank statements, transaction histories, signed papers. I threw them onto the table. "Do you know what those are?" I asked. No one spoke. I leaned in, my voice dropping to a whisper. "Those are the records of every single cent you and Juliet stole from me." Tessa's hand flew to her mouth, and Cassandra's composed mask cracked. Theo took a hesitant step back, the color draining from his face. "I had my lawyer dig into everything," I continued, staring directly at him. "And guess what she found?" His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. "Your name, Theo." His breath hitched. I tilted my head. "Do you know what that means?" Silence. I took a slow step forward. "It means you weren't just screwing my wife. You were helping her steal from me. And legally? That makes you complicit in fraud. He staggered back a step. Cassandra stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the polished floor. Enough. Her voice wavered, but she held her chin high. You are making a spectacle of yourself, Damien. No one is going to take you seriously if you act like a scorned little boy. I turned my cold stare on her. You're worried. She scoffed. Don't be ridiculous. I smirked. You should be, because this is just the beginning. And then, with perfect timing, the front doorbell rang. Juliet flinched so hard she nearly knocked over her glass. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and hit a button on the screen. The security feed popped up on the TV behind us, revealing 2 police officers standing at the front door. The room plunged into stunned silence. Tessa gasped. Cassandra's face went ashen. Juliet's entire body locked up with fear. She knew. She knew exactly what was coming. Juliet bolted from the dining room, rushing to the door. I let her go, because it didn't matter what she said. The damage was done. As she flung the door open, the officers greeted her with unreadable expressions. Juliet Cole, one of them asked. She hesitated, her fingers tightening on the doorframe. Yes. We have a warrant for your arrest. The sound that escaped her lips was somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Theo jolted to his feet, looking from her to the officers, panic flickering across his face. Wait, what is this? What's going on? Juliet whirled around, her face twisted with desperation. Damien, you can't do this. Please. I stood from my chair slowly, locking eyes with her. I already did. The officers stepped forward, cuffing her hands behind her back. Tessa let out a strangled noise of disbelief. Cassandra's mouth opened and closed, her eyes wide with shock. Juliet's knees buckled slightly, her breath coming in frantic gasps. Please, Damien. I'll do anything. I tilted my head, my lips curling into a slow, cold smirk. That's funny. I took a step closer, leaning in until my lips were mere inches from her ear. Because when I needed you to be faithful, you did nothing. Her sob broke free, raw and shattered. The officers pulled her toward the door. Theo stumbled forward. Wait, Juliet. Oh, don't worry. I smiled, turning to him. You're next. His eyes snapped to me, full of horror and disbelief. And just like that, the empire they had built on deceit and greed came crashing down. Theo stood frozen in the doorway, his breathing erratic, his hands twitching as if he wanted to grab Juliet, to save her somehow. But there was no saving her. Not this time. Not from me. What the hell did you do? He whispered, his voice shaking. I stepped forward, my gaze never leaving his. I did exactly what I should have done a long time ago. The officers dragged Juliet out the door, her sobbing echoing through the grand house that had once been her kingdom. Now, it was nothing but a ruin. Theo's head snapped toward Cassandra and Tessa. You knew about this? Cassandra's lips parted, but for the first time in her entire goddamn life, she had no words. No manipulative quips, no passive-aggressive remarks. Just silence. Tessa, however, turned to me, her eyes burning with something raw and desperate. You bastard, she hissed. You just ruined her life. I let out a slow, humorless laugh. No, Tessa. I stepped toward her, watching her shrink away. She ruined her own life. She clenched her jaw, shaking her head violently. You could have just walked away. You could have handled this privately, Damien. Why did you have to? Because she planned to ruin mine. I felt the rage boiling beneath my skin, the depth of my fury threatening to devour everything in its path. You don't get to lecture me on morality, Tessa. Not when you stood by and watched your sister mock me for years. Not when you helped her steal from me. Her lips pressed together, her eyes flicking to Cassandra for support. But Cassandra didn't move, because she knew I was right. The game was over, and they had lost. I turned back to Theo, watching as the reality of what was happening finally sank in. He looked at the police car outside, then at me, then at the stacks of paper on the table, proof of his involvement in my financial ruin. His face turned a sickly shade of gray. Damien, listen, You should start packing. I cut him off, my voice eerily calm. Because soon enough, your wife is going to find out exactly what you've been doing behind her back. His entire body went rigid. Naomi. His voice cracked. She doesn't know. I smiled darkly. Oh, she does now. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. On the TV behind us, a video began playing. The security footage. Theo and Juliet, laughing, kissing, undressing, all in my home, in my bed. And worst of all, Naomi was watching, live. The moment her face appeared on the screen, tear-streaked, full of betrayal and devastation, Theo let out a strangled noise, his entire body crumbling in on itself. Naomi's voice cracked through the speakers. "You son of a bitch." Theo turned to me, his eyes wide with something close to begging. "Damien, please don't." Too late. I gestured toward the screen, where Naomi was now listing off everything she was going to take from him. The house, the cars, full custody of their children, half of his assets, everything. Theo's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. Because he knew he was screwed. He stumbled backward, knocking into a chair. His breaths came in short, panic gasps, his entire world shattering piece by piece. I took a step closer, lowering my voice to a whisper. "You took everything from me, Theo." He swallowed hard. "Now, I'm taking everything from you." Cassandra, who had been strangely silent throughout all of this, finally spoke. "Damien." I turned toward her, raising a brow. Her lips pressed together, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the table. "If you think this is over, you're mistaken. You think you're invincible now, don't you? Just because you exposed Juliet and Theo." I smirked. "Oh, Cassandra." I reached into my pocket and pulled out one last envelope. I tossed it onto the table in front of her. She hesitated. Then, slowly, she reached forward and flipped it open. Her eyes skimmed the first few lines, and then she froze. Her face drained of color. Her fingers trembled, because what she was holding was evidence of her own financial crimes. Years of tax fraud, embezzlement, secret offshore accounts. I leaned in, lowering my voice to a whisper. "You helped them steal from me, Cassandra." She swallowed hard, her throat working. "And now..." I tilted my head, watching her fall apart. "You're going to pay for it." She looked up at me, and for the first time in her entire life, she was afraid. I grabbed my jacket, taking my time as I slid it on. The entire room was silent. Juliet was gone. Theo was broken. Cassandra was pale and shaking, clutching the documents like they were a death sentence. Tessa was speechless. I looked at all of them, my lips curling into a slow, satisfied smirk. This was fun. I turned to Theo, clapping a hand on his shoulder. He flinched. "You should have never come near my wife." Then, to Cassandra, "You should have never raised a daughter like Juliet." Then, to Tessa, "And you." I chuckled. "You should have never thought you could get away with it." I stepped toward the door, reaching for the handle. And then, I turned back one last time. "Oh, and one more thing." I smirked, my hand tightening around the doorknob. "This." I gestured to the destruction around me, the shattered relationships, the burning ruins of their perfect little world. "This is just the beginning." And with that, I walked out. I didn't look back. I walked out of Cassandra's house, leaving behind a burning wasteland of their own making. The cold night air hit me like a fresh start, and for the first time in years, I felt free. No more lies, no more manipulation, no more being their fool. But my revenge? It wasn't over yet. This was just the beginning of their downfall. The next morning, the news hit like a tidal wave. Juliet had spent the night in jail, and while Cassandra's wealth and influence might have gotten her out on bail, she was no longer untouchable. Because what she didn't know, I had sent copies of every single piece of evidence to the authorities. Bank fraud, tax evasion, theft. And just like that, Cassandra, the untouchable queen, was now the one being investigated. Theo, his entire world collapsed overnight. Naomi filed for divorce immediately, taking everything, the house, the kids, half of his finances. She didn't stop there. She told everyone, their mutual friends, their co-workers, everyone. By the time Theo realized what was happening, his job had already fired him, not wanting the scandal tied to their company. And Juliet, she returned home the next day, but it wasn't the home she had planned to steal from me, because by the time she got back, the locks had been changed. Her credit cards, frozen. Her access to our accounts, revoked. She had nothing, absolutely nothing. She showed up at my door that evening, her face streaked with mascara, her eyes hollow with desperation. I didn't let her in. Damien, please, she begged, her voice cracking. You can't do this to me. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You did this to yourself. She sniffled, shaking her head. I was wrong, okay? I messed up. I shouldn't have. I cut her off. You shouldn't have what? Screw my best friend? Stolen from me? Laughed about it. Her breath hitched. I didn't mean it. I let out a cold, humorless chuckle. Oh, you meant every single word, Juliet. She opened her mouth, to beg, to manipulate, to try to squeeze just one more ounce of sympathy out of me. But I was done. You don't live here anymore, I said simply. Her face crumbled. Where am I supposed to go? I smirked. Go to Theo. Her breath hitched, her entire body stiffening. Because we both knew Theo had nothing left either. And she didn't want a man with nothing. She wanted security, power, control. And she had lost it all. For the first time since this all began, she looked at me, not with arrogance or cruelty, but with real fear. Because she realized I had truly won. Cassandra was next. The investigators went deep into her finances, uncovering years of hidden fraud. And when her assets were seized, when the very same people she had bribed and manipulated turned against her to save themselves, she broke. Her grand house was foreclosed, her reputation ruined, and the social circles she once ruled over turned their backs on her. She went from powerful to powerless in the blink of an eye. The last I heard, she had left the city, moving into a small, dingy apartment in a neighborhood she once looked down on. Fitting, really. Theo tried to rebuild. He got a low-paying job, renting a small, miserable apartment. He reached out to Naomi, begging to see his kids. She refused. He had betrayed them too deeply. The last time I saw him, he was sitting alone in a diner, staring blankly at a cup of coffee. A man who had lost everything. And I didn't feel sorry for him. Not even for a second. Juliet tried one last time. She called me, voice small, fragile. I miss you, she whispered. I didn't reply, because I knew the truth. She didn't miss me. She missed who I used to be. The pushover. The man she could control. And that man was dead. I hung up the phone. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Sophia and I moved into a new home. A fresh start, away from the shadows of betrayal. She flourished. And me? I finally learned what it meant to be at peace. No more lies. No more betrayal. No more Juliet, Cassandra, Theo, or Tessa poisoning my life. Just me and my daughter, building a future without them. A future where I was no longer a fool. A future where I had won.